Welcome to Donuts, Design, and Debate, the podcast where we discuss and you decide how many world-renowned donuts a particular design receives. I'm Matt Robison, the moderator for today's debate, and this time we're talking about design contests. That's right, we're getting a little meta on this episode. We're deciding the design merits of design contests. A little bit later, we'll be bringing on a brand and web designer to share her thoughts on this and share her arguments. But okay, so what are design contests broadly? Design contests as they exist today are sort of online platforms where people will, clients will go up, fill out a brief for a design need, and post that. And then a bunch of designers will submit their potential designs to this client. And then the client will select from those, sort of finalists, and then from there iterate and select a final design that achieves their design need. And then the designer will be awarded the prize for that design contest. I'm going to go into more of the history and more of the background, but first, before we do that, I want to thank Iceland and the lovely people of Iceland. It's official, folks. The show is starting to take off, and we are Donuts, Design, and Debate, the show you're listening to right now, the 48th most listened to design podcast for 6 weeks in a row in Iceland. Woo! Oh boy, that's big news. And wouldn't be possible without the lovely designers, lovely, beautiful designers of Iceland. So thank you very much for your patronage and your listenership. Okay, so history of design contests. So obviously the ones we're talking about now are more on the internet, which wasn't always around, even though it feels like it was. The first evidence I could find of a public design competition was... Oh, baby, we're going back. This is way back. This is definitely the oldest history, the longest timeline we have for any of these shows so far. Our story begins here in 448 BCE. That's right. In Athens, a couple years after the Greco-Persian War, when King Xerxes of Persia invaded Athens during the Battle of Marathon, a couple years after that, there was a war memorial to be built in the Acropolis in Athens, and they had a public competition for people to submit their designs for this war memorial. So not a new concept, certainly very old, 448 BCE, long time ago. Fast forward a little bit. 700s, I have a little bit of a timeline here. 700s, there are some stone buildings in Mamallapuram, India, that were possibly part of a design competition. Written history, a little hard to come by during those times, so could have been a design contest there. In 1418, the dome of the Florence Cathedral was put up for a design contest. This cathedral had been in progress for a number of years, but in 1418, they decided, hey, let's put it to the people. The prize was 200 gold florins, which I personally did some translating that to current day money. So the number is probably not exactly right, but in today's US dollars, that would be around $175,000, which seems low to me, but my calculations are probably off. The winners, of course, as we know, history is written by the victors, and the winners of this Florence Cathedral design contest, Filippo Brunelleschi and Lorenzo Ghiberti. 1717 in Rome, the Spanish Steps were the winner of a design contest. They're called the Spanish Steps because they go from the church down to to where the Spanish embassy is or was. I'm not sure if it's still there. This design contest was started based on a brief drafted by Pope Gregory XIII in the 1580s. So, hey, you think design takes a long time these days? How about a couple hundred years? Try that on for size. Today, the Spanish Steps are a popular tourist attraction consisting of 135 steps, which was completed in 25. And the winner, of course, Francesco De Sanctis of that design contest. Last of these dates I have here, 1792. The presidential mansion in Washington, D.C. was put up for a design contest. George Washington himself, the first president of the United States of America, was the decider. He was the single panelist who reviewed the 6 proposals, and he went with a design by one James Hoban. So there's a number of these sort of public projects that were put up for design contests. The Eiffel Tower was a result of this, Space Needle, Statue of Liberty. In fact, in France, in 1977, the law on architecture said that public projects above a certain size and budget actually were mandated to include a competition for public submissions. Of course, you remember the Notre Dame fire, or perhaps you don't, but a couple years ago, the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris had a fire, and the spire, a fire spire, and a spire fire, And so that they made a design contest to redesign the spire. The winner of that contest was just the old design. So, sometimes it's good to get submissions and ideas for new designs through design contests. Sometimes people just like the old ones. One more quick example here of design contests. I found this periodical that ran through the 20s into the 40s called Pencil Points Reader, a journal for the drafting room. So this was sort of architecture-based publication that they had sort of these weird, quirky competitions monthly where you could submit, and if you win, you get $10, 10 smackaroos, and you also get your design printed in the publication. First of all, because it's like architects, people who are drafting all day, I think they were happy to be able to work on something a little more whimsical than their traditional architectural work. But some of the examples of the competitions they had were a bigger and better ashtray as part of your lounge chair. So the winning submission had sort of this, hole in the armrest, and then the idea being you don't have to empty the ashtray as much. So the ash goes down a chute into the basement, and it is sitting on like a scale. As the scale goes down, that's connected on a string to the trigger of a shotgun. So when that fills all the way up, the shotgun goes off. Hey, it's time to empty the ashtray. A little fanciful, but fun. Anyways, there's a lot of cool examples of this kind of stuff. These are just a couple. Today, design contests mainly exists on the internet, or probably entirely exists on the internet. But design competition platforms, folks, DCPs. This is a abbreviation that I found online. So these platforms that basically make it very easy for clients to put up design briefs and then solicit submissions from a bunch of different designers. Examples: Crowdsource, CrowdSpring, Design Crowd, and 99 Designs, probably the most widespread and well-known of these. You can go on there. They make it very easy for clients to, fill out a brief, but then they also, if it's logo design, for instance, you'll have like a list of logos that you select ones that you like, or ones that would fit the style of your particular look you're going for. Sliders, like, okay, is this design, you want it to be more angular or more flowy or more, colorful, more muted, more, more detail oriented or more abstract or something. So they try to make it pretty easy for clients to put these up there. All kinds of stuff you can get designed, logos we mentioned, but also websites, packaging, book covers, t-shirts, any kind of thing that you're looking for a graphic design for. These sort of design contest platforms are popular for, but I know very little about these things, and so that's why we have our special guest on today to talk about it. So please welcome to the show not only my co-host Aaron, but also brand and web designer Kenzi Green. Welcome to the show, everybody. As I toggle on your microphones here, a long tail applause break. So welcome to the show, Kenzi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So tell us a little bit about your background in design. I know you have a lot of kind of things going on with, you have a podcast and you have sort of a website and a large social media presence. So what's your design background?
Yeah, so short version, I graduated in 2019 with my bachelor's in interactive media design. I started my design business while I was still in college, graduated fully self-employed, and that's what I have been doing ever since then. I co-founded a design community by the name of The Brief Collective, where we really help designers improve their skills. And we host kind of like free brief challenges and just provide critiques on their work, and they can kind of meet other designers and really improve their skill set that way. And then I also have a design podcast. So a lot of different things going on there, but that is my, basic background in design.
I just got to say, design podcasts are the best. I'm totally unbiasedly. What else? Do you have another podcast about anything else? Right?
That's right. How do you do in Iceland? No, I'm just kidding.
I thought that was such a specific metric. I found that hilarious, but that's awesome for you guys.
But isn't that how podcast metrics are? It's like
we need a lot of qualifiers.
Well, if we look at
compared to like Obama's podcast, don't have a lot of downloads, but for Iceland we're doing pretty good. No, but that's very cool because we found you through your podcast, and I thought the name of your podcast is the Unapologetic Designer Podcast, and I feel like that fits. The strong opinions of your design eye will fit very well for our show today.
Tailor-made. Sounds perfect.
Yeah. So as usual, our guest brings in the topic. So Kenzi, why did you decide to debate about design contests today?
So first off, in recent years, obviously, they've become more popular, as you kind of stated in that little background overview. There's a lot of online websites hosting design contests. And, I have a whole list of reasons, but primarily the main reason is because a lot of large companies who have way beyond the means to pay a designer a rate for their work at what they deserve choose to host design contests instead of hiring a qualified designer and paying them. And I feel that not only devalues the industry, but I see designers get taken advantage of all the time, such as they submit their work without reading the fine print. And once they submit their work, they actually don't even retain the rights to that work, or they submit their work and then the company goes and picks out 3 different designs and they pick one designer to kind of mesh those together. So concepts are stolen. And I think a lot of new designers participate in these challenges to gain experience, but they don't realize how this affects the design industry or how they're actually being taken advantage of at the same time.
Nice. I love it. Boots on the ground experience of these kind of things. And letting your opinion be known. So hey, let's not tell any further. Today, Kenzi, as you probably would have guessed, is against design contests as being good design. That means Aaron is for them. He's the pro side of the argument today. So let's get into the arguments. Aaron, why don't you give us about 5 minutes, your opening argument on why you think design contests are good design?
Absolutely. And I'm gonna start by I didn't get an awesome intro like Kenzi did. So I got to intro myself a little bit, but I just wanted to say that a lot of you know me from being like showing SketchUp training, that kind of stuff. My background is in primarily residential design, but I have done graphic design work in the past. I've done it professionally. I have done some schooling for it. And I have also been at a company where we have used design services through competition. So just want to say, I kind of know what I'm talking about a little bit. I'm not a total loser. Okay, but anyhow, I got some ideas here that I want to throw out there. So there's actually 2 different pieces I want to look at. I wanted to look at how these design contests are good for designers and how they benefit clients. So 2 pieces that I want to run through. So first we'll start with the actual designers. I think this is a good way for a lot of times younger designers. It is an opportunity for people who may be starting out, don't know how to find clients. They don't have the skills to negotiate contracts, money, that kind of thing. It may not be the ideal solution, but it's a way for them to get their feet wet and get into that process. I think it's also a nice opportunity for people to do design work on the side. So maybe you don't have the bandwidth to be a full-time designer, but you have interest, you have ability. It's a way for you to kind of, dip your toes in the water, if you will, without, having to commit to a full-time job or work at a design firm. Another thing that's nice about some of these online groups, like Matt was mentioning, do actually have a number of resources available to the designers who work for them. So things that maybe wouldn't be able to get to by themselves, they can actually get a hold of as part of that larger group. And again, one of the nice things about this is because you're not working with an agency, you actually have, as a designer, the ability to choose the thing you want to work on. You're not going to be assigned, hey, you got to design this thing for this company. You could scroll through and go, this interests me, this interests me, this interests me. You have an opportunity to look at all those different pieces. And then, like I mentioned before, I really think that design contests in particular are good for novice designers. There's a lot of things that, as a novice designer, especially one that's not working full time, maybe somebody just coming up, has the ability to do things like, learn to interact with clients, learn to present their work. They can end up with some stuff in their portfolio that they've really done, as opposed to just spec work that never got picked up. And in some cases, it may even help them find a niche. Like, what kind of design do I really excel at? And you find out by doing it, something they may not have the opportunity to do if they work in a firm. And like I said, there's benefits to the clients as well. Obviously, I believe that there's a lot of benefits to the designers, but the clients get some stuff too there too. When they do reach out with these contests, they're reaching a much larger pool than they would if they go, who do I have that does design work in my country, in my town or something like that. This is people from all over the world could be taking part in these competitions. The submittal process is sometimes just ridiculously easy to go in and just say, I need a thing that does this, and send it out there, as opposed to going through an interview process. Great way to do that. Especially if I'm doing like an initial concept. And I'm going to tell you a secret about customers of design. Sometimes they don't know what they want. So rather than going in and paying for, a solution to something that's not really well fleshed out and they're not 100% sure what they need, they can get that initial idea process done for less with something like a design competition, as opposed to reaching out to a professional designer at that preliminary point. So those are some of my thoughts. I'm holding some stuff back because I know we're gonna get to voting, and I got maybe a little sweet little piece to drop here and there. But those are my preliminary thoughts about why design contests are good design.
Very good. More up his sleeve. Stay tuned. Don't want to miss that. But let's see. He give us a preface up front about how much experience he has in the design world. A likely story. Certainly, our guest today, Kenzi, has a lot more. So, Kenzi, why don't you tell us a little bit about the dark side of design contests?
Yeah, so I honestly feel like I could probably poke holes in every single statement you just made if we go over them individually. But what I was hearing was it's all about the client. The client gets their ideas for free, and there's not much in it for the designer, because now there's alternatives to building your design skills through things like brief challenges, where companies aren't actually profiting from the design work that's turned in. So I don't think that you have to use a design contest to necessarily get that experience. Furthermore, I think a lot of times when designers are participating in these competitions, they are not interacting with the client in what a typical design studio, design agency setting would be like. Like, a client is not going to come to me and say, here's what I want, do all these different variations, and I'll decide if I want to pay you. No, that's not how it works. I set boundaries. I deserve to get paid for my work. And a big problem in this industry is that new designers, new freelancers don't understand their worth. So they don't know how to set those boundaries. And when they go into these competitions, it just further perpetuates the idea that what they're doing is not worthy of monetary value. And it so is.
Yeah, excellent point. Devaluing the great value that designers bring to the table. Of course, we appreciate designers on this show more than the regular person. Maybe they don't. I don't know. Anyways, great argument. And now we're going to get into the head-to-head. So, Aaron, do you have anything to address Kenzi's particular argument? What do you think? Go back and forth, and what do you think about each other?
That's like, fight. No, I absolutely, I hope nothing I said ever directly implied that somebody who is a designer doesn't deserve to get paid for their work. I do believe that you do good work, you should get paid. My point is, I think that in a lot of ways, design competitions are an opportunity for people to break in and learn some of the ropes. But I of course, last thing I want to do is offend anybody, and that was not where I was going. So I think there's I'm gonna stop talking, or I'm gonna start negating my own arguments. So I'm good.
Well, I also think there is, in terms of breaking into the industry, like I said, there's now all these brief challenges out there. There's also online briefs for fictional companies. And I think that when designers are using those fictional companies, it can actually give them a better opportunity to create work for their portfolio that's going to attract their ideal clients, aside from having to scroll through this list of companies wanting to have, free work in a design competition. They can just go get a brief from the internet. That's exactly the type of person they want to work with in the future for, an actual company, and create work based on that, rather than a design competition where they might get taken advantage of, their concepts might be used, they might not get paid, there's no guarantee for payment, and this is a company that's profiting off of them.
Good points. Yeah, we don't want to take advantage of our designer friends out there, that's for sure. So now we're going to get into the voting portion, the most important portion of the show. You folks in the live chat, and hey, if you're listening later to this recording and you're not joining live, you're missing out on a great opportunity. You get to decide the outcome of the show. You get to vote and see if this is good design or not. So link in the show notes for future recordings. Don't miss it. And you have the power if you're here live.
It's time for the design competition portion of this anti-design competition debate.
Oh boy, it's built in. So yes, that's right. We'll go through our 5 principles of what makes up good design. Is it useful? Is it aesthetic? Is it simple? Is it environmentally friendly? And is the design honest? One at a time. And folks in our live chat will get to vote in the polls that pop up at the bottom. So the pro argument gets to go first, as always. So, Aaron, why do you think that design contests are useful?
All right. Well, I mean, in the description, right? It is a customer, a client going out looking for something, and they're getting it. They're getting design options from designers. So it's useful for clients. It's useful for designers because they're getting access to design briefs and opportunities to do design that they wouldn't have elsewise. So it ends up being useful, not just for the client, but for the designer as well. That's why design contests are useful.
Kenzi, why do you think the design contests are not useful?
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it benefits the client, and it gives them opportunity to take advantage of new designers who create wonderful work and steal concepts. And I totally understand being a new designer, wanting to get in there and get that experience, but there's other alternatives and ways to get experience nowadays that don't involve handing over your design work to a company who is more than capable of paying for you.
Good points. And remember, people in live chat, vote in the poll below. And going head to head, it's a close one here.
Just right in the lower right portion of the screen, click on polls, then click on yes is how you do it.
Nope, don't listen to him.
Ooh,
all
man,
right,
this
we'll
is
leave
close. Back and forth.
Oh, wow.
It's like watching a race.
So interesting to do this live.
Yeah, I'm going to second what Matt said earlier. If you guys are listening to this recorded, then I should stop talking. The more I talk, the fewer votes I get. But do come join us live. We do this every 2 weeks on Crowdcast. There's links to it on our forum, forums.sketchup.com. And you can join us every 2 weeks for live recording, and you can help us determine the outcome of the voting. So very fun.
That's absolutely right. And the polls are closed for this one. Design contests, not useful. No donut for you.
Yeah.
First one in the bag for Kenzi. So as a reminder to our debaters here as well, if it's close at the end, just keep throwing out arguments because we'll sort of leave it open if people are still voting. So don't hold back. On to the next donut. So, Kenzi, why do you think design contests do not have aesthetic appeal?
Well, I feel like this is quite a hard question to answer for a design contest in terms of aesthetic appeal. But I will say that in a sense of the brief is really general a lot of times when clients go on these competitions, and since they're not working one-on-one with the designer can't really direct them to say, hey, here's the questions I need answered, here's the content you need to turn in to me so I understand as your designer what I need to create for you and what's going to work for you and your brand and your business. So in that way, I think you end up getting a lot more of generalized, non-strategic designs. And that's why I don't think it's very aesthetic.
Good point. Aaron, your thoughts?
I think that it's all about aesthetic appeal, right? I mean, when you come down to whether you agree with how they're run or not, the best design wins. And the best design is, for most clients, going to be the one that looks the best, the one that satisfies the looks that they need. And I mean, that is what aesthetics is. Best looking design wins. Absolutely, the whole thing is about aesthetics.
But businesses need something that's strategic, not just looks good, right?
I'm going to stand by my statements.
That's a good point. Okay. We're going to close the polls here. Yes. Design contests do have aesthetic appeal. That's one donut. All right. Which leads us to our next principle here. Are design contests simple? And Aaron, you'll start this one off.
All right. I mean, there's arguments for and against these things, but if nothing else, they're simple. The process of going in and, I mean, sometimes submitting a brief for this, you're actually handed sliders. Like, how much do I want this? Do I want angular or rounded design? Pick a color from this chart to pick out what it is. The ultimate simplified, and I'm going to use the term dumbed down way to request a design as a client. It really doesn't get simpler for that. For the designer side, it is an easy way to find work. I mean, it's not complicated. I don't have to go out. It's kind of the simplest way that you could possibly find potential work. So it's simple on both sides of the fence.
Kenzi?
I think that it might be simple for clients because it's all about them. I do not think it's simple for designers because, one, there's no guarantee of payment, and two, again, you don't have the ability to talk one-on-one with the client and really get all of the information you need. You're just given this brief, and that's all you have. You may be looking at all these other designs and you're thinking in your head, well, I was going to go a totally different direction. And then you get confused because you're seeing people submitting designs in a totally different direction. And you're like, should I go that direction because they're submitting that? So I feel like it can actually be complicated from the designer side because they don't necessarily always have all the information they need and they can't get it either.
Interesting. I feel like we're on a little bit more of a lag than we usually are.
Yeah,
the first one we had, had a little bit more of a delay in the voting. So we'll leave it open for just a moment longer here. If either of you want to jump in and bolster your... Yeah,
there you go. Somebody got it right just now.
Anything else in the hopper for why you think it's simple or not?
Just because it is. Because of the way that it is.
Okay. Not convincing enough.
I think.
Okay. Design contests are not simple. That poll is closed. So we are on to our next one. Are design contests environmentally friendly, Kenzi?
I would say
And yeah,
no.
these are
Environmentally
this is
friendly.
yeah.
Well, I think that this can go back to there could be a deep root in this. The ethics, how are the graphics being created? Where are they being sourced from? And in these cases, you really don't know environmentally friendly. You don't know how these things are being created at all, or who's running this contest? How are they running it? So I think when you go back to the root of environmentally friendly, this is quite a hard question to answer, but I would say no, because ultimately there's so many open-ended questions when it comes to design contest.
Yeah, I appreciate you trying to fit this argument within the the format of the show. Like I said at the beginning, this is kind of a meta concept, so we're squeezing it in here. But yeah, Aaron, so what are your thoughts on environmental friendliness?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, and why? Well, I mean, so when we talk, there's a couple things you think about with environmentally friendliness. One is use of resources. It's all digital, right? So you're using some electricity. There's not a large amount of disposed materials with this. It keeps the design digital. And for designers, that means they can work from where they are at. So there's not a commuting. They're not using any gas, any fossil fuels, anything like that. They don't have to worry about an office space. They can work right out of their house. They can less dependency on any sort of resources whatsoever. So yeah, I mean, this is the epitome. I mean, how could you ever think anything other than yes, it's environmentally friendly?
Well, now you're assuming that everyone participating in these contests has Wi-Fi that they can use at their house. You're also assuming that they don't use any other materials in the design process, which I can say without a doubt is not true for me in my process, because I definitely sketch out things on paper and use paper prior to actually digitizing the concept.
Yes, I was intentionally ignoring that.
All right, polls are closed on that one. That's a half donut, folks.
Woo!
So I also would point out that
on this show.
Yes. The website 99 Design is owned by Vista of Vistaprint. So there's definitely some printing going on of these designs. I'll just point that out. And here we are to the last donut. The question is, are design contests honest? And Aaron, you start off.
I mean, I think everything's up front, right? The designer goes in, puts their work up, the client sees it. That's all there is to it. I think it was 99 Designs actually who had the quote, designers submit their idea and you pick the favorite. That's pretty straightforward. There's no vested interest. You don't know who the designers are. You just look at the thing you like, you go, that one, and that's it. That feels pretty honest to me.
That's
Kenzi,
if the client is honest. I feel like I pretty much have this one for the win at this point, because this is going back to my beginning argument. What happens is designers submit their work. They don't necessarily see that fine print that says they don't retain ownership of the work after it's submitted. And you also don't know what the client is doing once they get those designs. They might be going in there and saying, I like this one, this one, this one, this one. Hey, you put all of these together, and they're stealing the concept. So I do not think it is honest.
All right. Our audience here agrees with you. And so that means no donut for honesty. And that means that design contests, 1.5 donuts. Well argued on both sides. And thanks to everybody for showing up to the polls and voting. And before we wrap up the show here today, Kenzi, where can people find you online?
So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Kenzi Green Design, and then my design community where we host free brief challenges where you can connect with other designers and get feedback on your work to simply improve your skill set for fictional design brief companies is the Brief Collective.
And of course, a podcast.
All right.
And the podcast, the Unapologetic Designer Podcast, if you want to listen to more design stuff.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I will drop links in the show notes for all those places to find you. So thank you again, Kenzi, for joining us today. It was a great show and great arguments prepared by you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It was really fun.
Absolutely. Thanks. And from all of us here at SketchUp, we want to say thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. This has been a Trimble Media production. Thanks for listening to Donuts, Design, and Debate. If you know a designer you think would like this show, please share it with them. And, of course, don't forget to take a moment to give us a rating on your podcast app. Thanks for tuning in, and take care.